see here. There we go. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all again. Glad you could join us for our live show. We don't do them as regularly or as planned as we had been in the last year or so. Because, I think we filled out enough of the categories of things that people want to know about or need to know about, or that would be helpful to know more about, so that they can, worship God, follow the Messiah, treat each other the way they want to be treated, and resist wolves, beat their ass where necessary. Don't worry. This isn't an extreme apologetic show like last time. And we will have those, right? We do with Sam, we do with other people who are not normal. We'll just leave it at that for now, because that's not really what we're going to get into in this show. Well, some of the related issues will come up, but I'm not going to, I'm going to try to separate the different types of shows, So if shows like this, where we're just going to have a general discussion of text that will hopefully be beneficial for everybody, and where other shows where, like this coming Thursday, I'm going to do part 2 of the Trinity discussion show that's more generally likable than the prior series that I've discussed before that was for a specific purpose. So we're kind of making it a little bit different so that it's not as offensive or defensive in relation to people who are always combative, right? And who really don't have anything else to say. We've heard it all, and they just keep saying the same thing anyway. So whatever. We'll do what we have to. I'll do what I have to, and there's no problems there. I think we've seen enough, right? But I got plenty more to come. So we're going to talk about shepherds today. This is good stuff, especially if you want to know more about certain translations in Genesis, specifically chapters 48 and 49. This is going to be a good show for you. Yeah, and the NWT plays an important role here as well. You need to know this. Any Watchtower or NWT people, I think it would be important for you to listen to at least the part of this show covering Genesis 48 and 49, and the rest too. But either way, those chapters relate, and one of them in particular is we're gonna bring in the NWT, and well, you'll see. Okay. So we'll give people a few more minutes to join us if they want to for this show. And then, so we'll spend a couple hours. We're going to go through some texts I've got lined up. Good stuff on shepherds. I think you need to hear this. This coming Thursday, I'm going to do another live. Excuse me. I'm going to do another live on the Trinity, but it's a general discussion show. I'm going to do at least 5 of those non-confrontational, more discussion-oriented Trinity shows. I don't think I need to do them like forever, but I thought, well, there's at least 5 that if I did and we talked about them would be helpful, I think. So we can always come back and do another one if necessary, or talk about it more. But at least 5 of the, like I said, generally likable and more discussion-oriented, non-confrontational Trinity shows, where we just kind of try to talk and understand certain things, apart from all the direct confrontation, which we will do and have done, and there's still more to do. But that's not really the goal, right? We're not here to just engage perverts and pagans and demonize pastors, right? So either way, we will talk about that stuff where necessary. And so if you want to be a part of that, this coming Thursday won't really get probably much into any of that stuff. More, again, like I said, just thoughtful discussion of the Trinity. Very important, though. If you haven't heard the first show, I think you should, if you're interested in the Trinity, because I think it was pretty clear that there's nothing in the Bible that requires belief in a triune God to be saved. Now, in the last show I did, that was more of the extreme apologetics type. It was directed at Sam and his lies about Psalm 2 and Hebrews 1, and just the general lie of Trinitarians, right? The pagan belief in eternal generation, which isn't possible. Generation is, by definition, not eternal, right? It's the whole point. You're just denying what you're affirming, right? That's the whole point of same thing as knowing all things and not knowing all things. You're just denying that he does know all things while also affirming that. In other words, you guys are liars, okay? It's like a low-level Jedi mind trick for fags, right? Which is you guys. So we just don't care anymore. No one cares about you guys anymore. That's why you guys aren't relevant anymore, right? It's just like this spectacle of idiots, right? With a few decent people. There's some pretty good people on the Protestant side, actually. And I know some decent Catholics. But what I'm saying is on the apologetics, on YouTube especially, right? It's just clown show, right? Kooks. Nothing new. Very little that's you wouldn't have to fact check to the moon before you use, right? Although I think we do some quality stuff. I try my best to give you guys good information that you can use, right? We're here about three things primarily. Jah, Jesus, you, and me. But we talk about a lot of stuff because there's more than that to discuss if people want to. And we do have more that as Christians we need to do. But fundamentally, we start with a 1, 2, and 3. One God the Father. Jesus is the sent forth Savior, Messiah foretold before he was born. Golden rule. Okay, so on that, we also then build from what the Bible teaches in other ways that are helpful and may give people direction where they have to make a decision, but they still need information, right? We can help people even though we're not requiring specific beliefs on all these different things so that we can get along, hopefully, and build from there, right? Get away from all this paganism, right? This dragon theology that has just destroyed the Bible, right? But even with what we have enough, don't we? We have enough to see the Master. We have enough to see the God of the Bible, God of history, Jah-O, right? And to teach him correctly. We don't need Middle Platonism or paganism or people who are just gone, right? Can't even manage their own lives, are barely at home with their kids, and instead, clearest sign you can have of a wolf, run around to everybody else's flock to try to disrupt things. It's one of the clearest signs you'll find of a wolf. Because a shepherd, as you're going to see, doesn't go to other flocks. Because the wolf would then come in, kill the sheep. So you know right there, if you see a shepherd from a so-called shepherd from another flock taking his time away from his flock to be with a bunch of idiots, right there, you know, not a shepherd. That's a wolf in sheep's clothing wanting to invade somebody else's flock. That's why we don't do that. We don't have to do that. They have to do that because they don't have a flock, right? They don't have a history. They don't have a flock. They have demonized pastors, champion masturbators, and people who follow them as their flock, okay? So you don't need to worry about those kind of people. They destroy themselves in so many ways, it's not equal. But if you're not careful, right? If you're not careful, the wolf, you see, the thing with being a shepherd, and that's not everybody. I'm going to show you that in the Bible. But there's a little shepherd in everybody, hopefully, right? Some more than others. But in order to do things to keep people protected, good to see you, Unitarian Pre-Existent Subordinationist. I like that name. I'm going to call you UPS, if that's okay. And Derek Jones, good to see you. We'll get started more here in a minute with, specific text from the Bible. Very important translation stuff from Genesis that you're going to want to, if you're interested at all in that, or the NWT, you're going to want to watch. Right, so we're going to get into these texts in a moment, but remember the wolf. You see, you know what we've been talking here and there about in and amongst, different shows, how should we treat people, right? How should we treat people who have doubts? How should we treat people who are antagonistic, right? Who are opponents in one or more senses? And then those who are just evil beasts, right? We talked about the differences, and there are several of them clearly where the text that a lot of people want to bring into that discussion, they don't apply linearly, right, to all of the categories. So they all get conflated often, and then people are like confused, like, okay, what's this? What do I do? Well, what you do is very first thing you should do with anything or anyone specifically you're dealing with is know who you're talking about, okay? Once you know that, well, then you'll be able to make the right applications. If you're just making applications without specific identification, then everyone, it applies to everyone, right? No matter what. And that's not true. You're going to see that even more tonight, right? And think about the difference between a sheep and a wolf. That in itself requires a distinction, right? If you're a sheep, okay, let's just pretend for a moment. Let's say you're a sheep, like a real sheep, but figurative. We're kind of just, we're using the imagery of the Bible, and we're putting ourselves in those positions figuratively and saying, okay, so let's bring up this vision. Let's bring up this visual of a field, of a shepherd, someone out there watching over a flock of sheep. Okay, you're with me? We can all see that, right? But it's important. Visualizing is important, especially when we're dealing with figurative language from the Bible and from the Master, right? Okay, so we have this field. We have a shepherd. Good to see you, Betsy and GL. We're in a field. We have a shepherd. And we have a flock of sheep. Now, I want you to think about the different roles there. First, let's be the sheep. All of us, okay? There's a shepherd there, and he's watching over us, and we're this flock of sheep. And there's also a wolf. And the sheep know that, of course, right? As sheep, they know, and as humans, we know. So we can see it both from the animal and the human perspective in the figurative sense. So if you're with me, that's what you're seeing, right? You're seeing someone there who's watching over us, a shepherd, this human being, representative figure, and we're these sheep, right? We're out here doing what sheep do. We need space. We need to move. We need to be able to eat and walk in peace. And the shepherd's there, right? The shepherd's there to make sure we get to do that without the wolf coming and killing us, right? Now, why? Let me ask you this, my fellow. I'm a sheep. You're a sheep, right? We got this shepherd here. And there's the wolf out there, or more, right? At least one. We'll just say one for now, but there could be more. Either way, there's usually more. So we're there. We're with the shepherd, right? We're walking around like little sheep, and we're all happy. Everything's nice, right? Why do we need the shepherd? Why can't we just walk around, and I mean, I know you know the answer already, but I want you to think about it. Why can't the sheep just do it on their own, right? Just walk around, go in the areas where you need to go, eat what you need to eat, and be free on your own, right? Why can't we do that as sheep? Remember, we're not shepherds. This is the illustration we're in. There is a shepherd. We'll just say it's Jesus or another shepherd, because you're going to see and probably know, not everyone's supposed to be a shepherd. A little shepherd novice, though, right? So, okay, we're sheep, though. We're also sheep for the master. One flock, one shepherd. So we can be in both. We should be able to imagine both, right? Because we have to be both, pretty much. And some have to be the shepherd more than others. That's also true. So why do the sheep need this shepherd? Okay, well, we already know, right? The wolf. The wolf's out there and will kill the sheep. Yes, he will. It's not like, the wolf once every year, like a shark attack, maybe. You go to the beach all the time. It's very rare, right? It happens, and we hear about it more, but we all should know shark attacks are very rare. But people go in the water on their own, where the sharks are, all the time, right? And they're often right there, right? They just don't attack usually. Can the sheep do that? They really can't, can they? Because it's different, right? We're humans, we're smart. Yeah, if the shark's right there and wants to get us, it's probably over. But it's rare. They don't like us anyway, right? They really want something with more blubber, like Sam. But either way, or William, either way, and I've noticed William is actually trying to he seems like he's losing a little. Good job, William, okay? Now, do you think William will ever thank me? Do you think William will ever give me the credit and say, you know what, if he ever gets in shape, let's assume this happens. I'm seeing a little bit of sign though. Hey, it's working, right? Do you think he's ever going to say, if he gets in shape, yeah, Greg Stafford really motivated me to get in shape? No, all right. Of course not. Same with Sam. I told Sam the truth. He hates me for it. What can you do? And apparently I'm the only one who can tell a demonized pastor to out of here, right? Either way, join me more for that in our next Extreme show. Not necessarily on the demonized pastor, though. Although he's always out there, right? Floats around. Can't stay with his flock because he's not a shepherd, right? It's sad. And I feel bad. I was watching the clips of him abusing his kids verbally again. It was bad. I thought, well, if this pig actually, so many things. But I'd probably start with that. I'd probably loop him abusing his kids for a few hours, Several clips, several separate videos, different instances of the abuse or the trauma, right? The kids will have to watch them themselves be traumatized over and over again as they grow up, right? Every time they search the pagan, the demonized pastor, they'll be like, I want to see what happened on YouTube, all these over the years. Oh man, I got traumatized. That's why I'm fucked up, right? I'm sorry. No, I will use those terms at times because I'm referring to other people who are gone, right? So I don't like to use a language that isn't like in everyone's favorite dictionary, but I'm not going to be a pretentious person either. I'm a normal person. And if I'm speaking about a demonized, pervert, fraud pastor, right? I'd hate to have to do that, right? There's so much though, right? We'll see. It's not up to me. Once you flip that switch, right, it's like, okay. Either way, we all know, right? It's like so much is it's over. Right? But then we got Sam. So we got these people, right, that bring out this kind of despicable reference and description. I don't like it. I'm not here to do that. But as we know in the Bible, that does sometimes happen. Not every use of a curse or profane word. The Bible doesn't say, hey, you can't use this specific word or this specific word. There are certain descriptions you're not supposed to use towards your brother. That's very clear. These aren't my brothers, okay? This is the whole point here. When you're a sheep, right? Okay, what I just said, think about what I just said. Now, this is important. Don't worry, we're not going to get extreme here. We're not going to be pretentious either. You watch movies that say things, you can watch me, okay? I'm not being pretentious. They're acting. Think about it. Now, in other words, I'm speaking from the heart. They're not. I'm talking about people who deserve it. They're not. Think about the wolf, the shepherd, and the sheep. Why do we need the shepherd? Because the wolf will kill us, right? It's a fact. It's not like a shark in the water and every now and then. No, the wolf is there all the time when the sheep are there, and he's waiting all the time when the sheep are there to make a move, to kill you. You understand? Well, what did Paul say he knew would happen the second he left? oppressive wolves swoop in and kill everybody. That's how serious this is. It's literal and spiritual death, okay? Read the biblical accounts. Read Jude's letter. They're not playing around. Even when Peter started playing, no. Paul said, no. Why? Because they will kill you. You understand? They will kill you. So when the shepherd's out there watching over the sheep, how many times can you think of when the sheep are worried about how the shepherd fights off the wolf? Do you think it matters to the sheep? We'll get to the Bible in a moment. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Do you think it matters to the sheep, or ever would to a real sheep, how the shepherd beats that wolf's ass? Think about that. So the shepherd's out there risking his life or safety, or both, right? Either one. Found the wolves. And the sheep are just there benefiting, you know? The shepherd just wants to keep the sheep happy and going and growing. So when the wolf comes along, he only has one objective. There is no other. The wolf isn't there to be a friend, right? Now, wolves, in the figurative sense, right? Obviously, animals can't talk and stuff. But if they could, in some sense, signal in ways we can't see, but in a figurative sense, we can believe because we see, real wolves, especially if they're smart like humans, so the figurative type are the worst, if they can get the sheep to not follow the shepherd, it's over, right? It's just over like that. That's so easy. Gone. So it's an advantage to the wolf to deceive the sheep into thinking they're not benefiting from the shepherd who's protecting them so they can actually grow and become good sheep. The shepherd is only thinking when the wolf attacks, I would think, right? I would never think, well, maybe that shepherd shouldn't bash that wolf's head in, right? Just bash its brains in. Don't do that. Don't do that, shepherd. That wolf didn't need to have its brains bashed in like that. It was just coming to claw us to pieces and rip our heads off, right? It's almost so wild. Do you see, though? You see how effective wolves are. Oh, they are. They're so good today that whether it's Watchtower, Catholics, or any other pagan or demonized pastor, right? They're not shepherds, so they just leave their sheep and go and invade the other flocks and try to get them not to trust their shepherd. That's it. Now, our shepherd is the master, 100%. We do have, as you're going to see, others who are appointed in a representative sense, though. And to the extent that they're doing what they're supposed to do, we should follow them. We should pay attention. Why? I just explained it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure you agreed with it all the time I was talking about it. Sheep don't tell the shepherd how to take down that wolf, right? It's a wolf. It's a wolf. See, a lot of times what people do is they treat the wolf like a sheep. Oh, they do, huh? Isn't that weird? Think about it. They really do. And it works, right? Once that happens, it's over. Once you don't see, remember what I said earlier when I started the show? I said, hey, as long as you know who you're dealing with, there should never be a problem, right? Exactly. So why would you think a wolf is a sheep? It should be like so obvious, right? Remember the number one sign I gave you earlier? I think it's valid. And if you can think of I know there are a lot of signs. We'll talk about a few in a moment. But the shepherd doesn't leave his sheep, right? No, GL, it doesn't have anything to do with those dorks. I'm just referencing them because they were part of the recent, whole extreme breakdown of normalcy, right? And not normal people. I think everyone can see that, right? We've got some people out here who have created an insanity as fake Christians, okay? Now, if that does not upset you, I was thinking about this earlier today. I was thinking about it. I was thinking, I got these little cookies again. I'm actually in my slim down phase. I'm in my light phase. I go through different phases. These guys are so stupid, right? At all. Everyone who knows me knows I've been doing all kinds of different training since I was 14 years old. Primarily strength to weight ratio training, which I find to be the healthiest because it's easier on your joints, right? I went through that whole big buff phase and I maxed out, right? These guys are clowns. But what happens is when you put on a lot of weight for strength, you put on a lot of stress on your cartilage and joints, and you're not as fast. I like speed, jumping, so I'm for power and weight ratio. Like what I mean is what I train for. These guys are so stupid, fags. I train for how strong can I be at my lightest weight, you understand? And then as I go toward the end of this year, probably another month or so, I'll start to try to get big toward the end of the year. Then maybe 20, 25 pounds. I can do that easily. I've been doing, these guys are clowns. So what I try to do though, is I try to get as strong as I can while I'm as light as I can. Because then I'm as fast as I am. And I feel right. Like right now, I'm at my peak. These guys are clowns, right? We got one who's a perverted fat masturbator, right? Who looks like a blob, and a Down syndrome baby-faced demonized pastor, right? I'm telling you, the second that switch is flipped, and we get past the child abuse clips, we'll let them decide, right? Because this is going to involve their kid. So we'll let them decide so that no one can ever say, I just did it on my own. They already messed with me once. You do it again, it's everything goes. And you chose. Okay? And now you froze. So get the hell out of here. Either way, that's what I do. These guys are clowns. And it's so funny to me, right? These kooks. They spend all their time with other people's flocks because they're just wolves and they don't even have a flock, right? What flock? Of non-exercised people who then leave and badmouth you? That's a good flock. What happened to go find the one sheep that got lost? I thought you're supposed to leave everything and go find the one sheep that got lost. Exactly. Instead, what do? Run around, spend time with these other kooks. It's over. So, don't push it. Now, back to the show. Back to the show. We got wolves, right? So don't you think, though, before we get into the scriptures coming up right now, don't you think it's absolutely necessary to maintain a distinction between a wolf and a sheep? That if you don't do that, you're probably screwed, right? Eventually, the wolf's going to get too close because you think it's a sheep. So what do you mean, right? You understand the description. You understand the metaphor here. This is from the Bible. So when these people use these terms, they're saying, if you mess up here, okay? You mess up here, you're going to die, okay? So you got to have a good shepherd or be one. And that is by staying with your flock I'm not acting like a fag and running around with these other homos. I mean, staying with your flock and beating that wolf's ass when he comes around. You understand? Knocking them, everything goes. You tell me it doesn't go when you're that sheep and the wolf's attacking and the shepherd's defending. What are you thinking? Everything goes? Or don't hurt the wolf, right? Don't be mean. The wolf's just trying to eat us. So try to, just break its leg, right? Which we'll do anyway. But either way, the wolf's going down, right? It's going to be pound downtown, right? Because we don't want any other wolves coming around. We want them to see this wolf, got its ass ripped off, right? You come back around here, you mess with these sheep, ass off. You understand? And wear it as a hat. Whatever. We are not going to be nice on wolves ever. And if you do, it's over. Okay. That's why a lot of you aren't going to make it. A lot of you are just not capable of doing this. That's why a lot of you can't stand up to Watchtower. Can't do it, no matter what. You're not a shepherd. Okay? You might have shepherd qualities, but you don't have to be a shepherd either. If that's not you, well, then be something else. Maybe you're a teacher. Maybe you're an evangelizer, as we'll read about. But when you think you're a shepherd and you're not, what ends up happening is you become jealous of the real shepherds. You do. Like Cain and Abel, right? Cain thought he was going to be favored by God. No, you actually should have looked at your brother and saw what he did and then done that instead of been a jealous pervert, pig, and collapsed. That's what happens, though, because people are trying to be something they're not. And so it's harder, right? It becomes harder for shepherds to defend the sheep from the wolf because some of the sheep are trying to be the shepherd. And then you're like, you can't hold this staff. You got 4 feet and that fur, right? I'll come and pet you later, right? Or whatever. They can't be the shepherd. Not in this case, right? And if they are, well, then you better get out there and fight that wolf, and you might have to die. You understand? Are you ready to take some scratches and bites? Okay, then, if you're not, you understand, this is where everyone falls off. Either from being jealous because they're not what they want to be and can't be what they should be, and someone is who they are, or the wolf deceives them into feeling sorry for it, Show me one verse in the Bible where we're supposed to have pity on these wolves and how that would even make sense, Where would that work exactly in any kind of parallel metaphor with sheep, shepherd, and wolf? We have the mercy on the wolf as a flock of sheep with a shepherd. When can you think of where that would actually happen? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just really critical that we first understand who we're talking about. What is the issue? Who's doing what, and what the hell are they doing in the first place, right? Who's the shepherd? Who's the sheep? And who are the wolves? You can see that real clearly. Shepherd never leaves his flock. Sheep are always with the shepherd. The wolves always leave their flock because they don't have one. They're just lying to everybody to make you think they're a sheep or a shepherd. You can tell that because you can see that they would be with their flock, right? They'd be building up their sheep and their group of people would be becoming stronger and fighting off other wolves. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Okay, so let's look at the Bible. What does the Bible say about all this sheep shepherd stuff, and what's this translation issue in Genesis 48 and 49? Well, let's bring it up. I'll bring up some text. We will also use the Bible Hub, but not in every case. We will for the translation issues, though, so let's go to it. Bring you guys up here. Let's say hi. I might have missed a few people. I kind of got going. Just wanted to pump you guys up with the illustration, right? That illustration is very important. It will help you remember who you're dealing with. Just put them in their category. Okay, who's the shepherd? Who's the sheep? Who's the wolf? Wolf's trying to kill us. Sheep are trying to live a peaceful life and enjoy the area. And the shepherd is watching out for the wolf to kill it and beat its ass, right? So it's one of those three almost always, if not always, right? I'll leave an exception open for so, but in this illustration, that's it. So you have to find out. Okay, I'm with a group of people. This person's a sheep like me, or this person's a shepherd, more of a shepherd than me. So I can look to them to help me if a wolf comes around, right? That's how you should feel towards these different people. Now, and a wolf, right? What does a wolf do? Comes in, causes disruption, leaves their flock, because they're wolves, right? That's what they do. They're there to eat you. They're there. That's what they get off on. They're fags, right? Usually. They have problems like Sam, right? He has mangina. So these guys are left with just basically, even though they're male, scissoring each other. I'm sorry, I know. But we're dealing with perverts and pagans, right? So either way, these are things they've all admitted basically, and or you can see clearly, yeah, no, that ain't working on you. And you can tell who has little man syndrome, right? We can tell very easily, boys. I mean, some of you guys must just barely be showing because the little manness is pretty wild, right? No self-confidence at all. It's like just gone. But remember, everyone, these perverts are promoted as fake shepherds. They are. People actually let them lie to other people and commit fraud, whether it's about exorcising demons, the shape of the earth, or the nature of God. It's fraud for money or attention, right? Because they don't get any at home. Trust me. Either way, there's a lot of problems with these groups, as you can all see, right? It's not hard to see who's gone, right? They're nowhere near any kind of Christian group. They're a fraud. What we do here is we empower you for free and we give you the tools that are necessary if you want them. If you don't, then go do what you want. We'll help you if we come and cross paths. We're not here to necessarily promote any person's view other than the three things that we all share in common and talk about our own views where they are relevant. But we don't enforce those. We try to get along with everyone. But if you come here and you mess around, you try to promote pagans and pigs, you are one, or you wouldn't be doing that. Pretty obvious. Now, let's go to the Bible Hub, right? Good to see you all. I don't know. Did I say? I think I said hi to everyone. We'll go back to you guys in a minute. All right. So, and I have these, one more thing. Got some text for us here, so we'll bring those up. And just size that. I'll show you what I'm going to be showing you guys. I'm going to size it better, though. We'll go to this in a moment. This is going to be really good, okay? So hang tight. You're going to learn a lot here. This is me giving you free information and time because I want you to be strong, right? I'm thinking long term, right? I'm about the long term. I think right now we have some real serious problems with men in particular. Women also, but quite honestly, I don't know. Either way, we've got problems with people right now. We have a very low level of faith, right? We have people who are really struggling because it's hard. It can be hard to just do what's right against the flow of whatever you're dealing with. And at times, people are just weak, right? I mean, think about it. Think about what people can't do. Yes, it's not always easy. I understand that. I've been through it. Can't stand up to people who've been proven liars when it comes to predicting the end. With the end time. It's just over and over again. Can't do it. No, can't do it. You still got to be right. And if you don't think they're right, you're going to Gehenna, right? That's how serious it is, even though they're clearly wrong. Look at the Catholics, right? One of the most obvious pagan groups you can imagine, right? It's so obvious. They do everything against the Bible pretty much, right? From calling people father to not guarding yourself from idols, right? We don't even have to get into the tree and all this stuff and all this paganism that came later. all these buildings and all these things. It has nothing to do with the Bible, right? Came later. Right. So, I mean, look at people like Sam, right? I mean, it's so obvious, right? This guy's got zero Holy Spirit. He's a fraud. Guy's even running from other people now, right? Just a out and out fraud, champion masturbator, won't work, defies the apostles, shoves junk food in his mouth. And then him and this demonized pastor are running around trying to create trouble because they're pigs. And all they have is mangina now. So, I mean, right? And someone who can't exercise something. Such a stupid exorcism video, right? Just a full fraud, right? Gets hammered and exposed. Runs around because he's so insecure he can't handle his own fraud and go find the one sheep and try to figure it. No, this is just over. Right? Leave his fights over. Abuse his kids over. These are the people out there, everybody. You understand? So it's really bad right now. It's like as bad as you probably can ever have found it in Christendom. That is all Christian religions right now. It's like unbelievable, right? It's like everyone has been turned into a pig, a pervert, a demonized pastor, right? But what does the Bible say? Babylon be filled with demons, just like these people, right? It's just disgusting. So, and then we have the lames, right? The people who won't even express themselves openly as Christians. They're so weak, can't even partake because they've got these fake date setters, right? These fake teachers who keep lying about dates in God's name, telling them that they shouldn't be partaking or making it pretty clear that that's the case based on their chronology because they're perverts and no one can stand up to them, right? So this is where we are. We've got almost, I can't put a number on, right? I'm sure there are some people in certain churches or groups that have people who would stand up and try to do good. I think Kelly Powers tries to do good. I think Kelly is a sincere person. I think even someone like Rob Bowman, right? These aren't perfect people. None of us are. That's not the point. What I'm saying is, if James White, these aren't the kind of people that when I think of them, I think are going to hurt you. You know what I'm saying? They're going to try to take advantage of you. You know what I mean? Maybe. I don't know them that well. What I'm saying is my experience with them tells me, regardless of the fact I think they're wrong, theologically, all that, they just don't strike me as someone who's trying to hurt you. You know what I mean? I just don't feel that way from them. When it comes to these other pigs and pagans and demonized pastors, right? They're like so obviously gone, right? It's so obvious. We got wolves here, right? These are the lowest level, like spiritual Down syndrome, right? And that's no offense to real Down syndrome people. If he has that, no problem. Maybe I explain some things. I don't know. He looks like it though. Either way, what I'm saying, I don't hope I don't have to do memes like that. I might have to. We'll see. Kids first though. Either way. So, right, we've got just different degrees of people that I think, more or less are going to either try to hurt you or not. Or if you were around them, I think you wouldn't have a problem, right? If I was around just hanging out with the people I mentioned, Rob, Kelly, James, as long as we just didn't get into a theological ongoing dispute, I would just be normal discussion. I wouldn't have to worry, Whereas with some of these other people, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, there's alarm bells going off. I got to get out of here. These are pigs and pagans and frauds. Literally frauds, right? Just fake. Well, it doesn't get much worse than that. If you're a fake and a fraud, that's the devil, right? What else is that? If you're not following the footsteps of their father, which they are. They're pigs, pagans, and demonized. No pastor's going to be like that. No shepherd's going to be like that, right? So you really need to think about these categories: wolves, shepherds, sheep. And then also, even when it comes to other people in other religions who you don't agree with, you should still be able to tell the difference, right? Like I just did. I can give you several examples and many others, different groups of people in them who are not in the wolf category. They wouldn't try to kill you. You understand? And I can think of other people in those same groups who would spiritually or literally try to do that. So whereas people in other religions or groups different from ours may not be as much of an issue, we deal with people all the time, right? And they'll either try and deal with us or vice versa. So we still need to know who we're dealing with, whether it's in our own group or in another group. What kind of person is this? What are they known for? What have they been doing recently, right? What's their recent behavior? Well, that should be your first place, right? How are they presenting the God of the Bible? Is it correct or not? Even if it's incorrect, are they doing it sincerely, or are they clearly lying and committing fraud and recycling the same already destroyed arguments, acting like they haven't been responded to before, right? Right? Or faking spiritual gifts. These are really clear signs of fraud. The doctrinal stuff, yeah, but people believe things for different reasons. It's one thing to believe different doctrine, to be convinced for reasons to believe different doctrine. It's another to intentionally try to commit fraud, right? Whether repeating an argument you know has already been defeated and not discussing the issue you couldn't deal with, or lying about your spiritual gifts. That's totally different. Hopefully you can see that. Now, let's look at some shepherd texts, okay? Genesis 48. Let me make this a little bigger, actually. Only about another hour to go, so thank you for joining me. Let me just check, though, because we know, right, we got pigs, pagans, and perverts who float around sometimes. They say weird stuff. Looks like we're good so far, though, right? Like I said, I hope, I don't like to do that stuff, as you all know. I'm not the one who initiated this stuff. I'm not the one who initiated this stuff with Sam. He's also the one who came after me. So it's them coming to me and attacking you. My job as the shepherd is to give my life to beat their ass when they do that. It's not a fun job. No, I hope, my hope is that though we just can grow as a good flock and become more positive community all the time, but that's not going to happen. We're in a fight, you understand? Okay. Once the wolf attacks, fun's over, right? Unfortunately, maybe tomorrow we'll have a nice day, When the wolf attacks, it's on, right? Then we're going to have a problem for a little bit until we get the wolf out of here. Get your ass back to wherever you came from, right? So let's look at those texts, though. Okay, we look good. We got the Bible Hub. Bring this up. Let's do it. We'll be back Thursday. General discussion on the Trinity. I also have an extreme apologetic show. Anything in dealing with Sam or people like him, demonized people, that's going to be on an extreme show level. That will be happening soon. I'm going to be going back to part 3, actually, of Sam's attempted review of my debate with Dr. White. We left off where he manifested as Gollum and an effeminate queer. And it made me laugh so hard, I'd stop. Remember that? Oh, well, he's not getting away, right? No, Sam. It's all going down. Sorry. We'll have part 3 live coming up probably sometime this week on that. Extreme apologetics, though, with Sam. I'll wait. Won't wait for the right time. But Thursday, we'll do the general, more likable for everybody show. Genesis 48:14. However, Israel put his right hand and placed it on Ephraim's head, although he was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head. He purposely laid his hand so, since Manasseh was the firstborn. Right, we talked about this before, how this is how in the Bible, right? They're both born. But sometimes one who's not the firstborn can be given the dignity or honor of the actual firstborn. They're both born, though, right? So for that to happen, there has to still be a firstborn who's not getting the dignity and honor of being the firstborn. They try to apply this to God. It's so weird. Anyway, verse 15, he proceeded to bless Joseph and to say, the true God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the true God who has been shepherding, right? So this is the concept of shepherding in the Bible, right? Think about the time we're in, right? So we have Jacob here talking about all of these events involving him and his family. And we know they went through a lot of peril and difficulty. So shepherding, right, even as he goes on to say, look, shepherding me during all my existence until this day. Verse 16, the angel who has been recovering me from all calamity, bless the boys. Now, we've talked about this text in other videos, specifically in my video about New Testament letter openings, where Sam and his Greek Orthodox pagans lied about the use of the singular verb for God and Jesus as if it proves Trinity, when it doesn't prove that at all. It just proves they don't know Greek of the New Testament, like I do, because I'm the one who showed them that there are uses of singular verbs in those same New Testament letter openings that also are for more than one human subject, right? So no, that wouldn't be what we would expect to find, boys, unless you're assuming your doctrine, which you are. A whole video on that coming up later. If you would expect to find that, then why would you expect to find that for humans? Because the singular verb doesn't make them any kind of composite unity in any sense. So no, it wouldn't be what you would expect to find. You're just lying, because even though you're modern Greek pagans, you don't know the Greek of the New Testament. That's why we get John 1:1 and 1 John 5:21 from you the way we do. Here, we can see that Jacob very clearly saw that the true God who had been shepherding him had been doing so by means of this angel. As we know, no one can see God and live. It has never, ever happened, and it never will for us humans. God did show Moses his backside after putting him under a rock and covering him with his hand. Okay? So, any account where it says that's God, unless the person dies or is in a rock with God's hand over them, it was an angel. No matter what it says, right? Even if it says it's Yahweh or the Lord God, right? Read Acts 7. There's your apostolic teaching where several times they identify as angels. What the Old Testament account says is Yahweh the Lord. Okay? So no, the Bible doesn't have to say it's angels over and over and over again. It's already told you it's angels. It's already told you you can't see God. So either you're retarded or you follow the Bible. Therefore, since Jacob is giving the credit to God, he's acknowledging that God's been using an angel, the angel. And as we know from Genesis 18 and 19, there's been more than one angel. Not necessarily with Jacob, but we know it's an angel. It's even identified in Hosea as an angel that he wrestled with, a god. Because the angels are gods, right? In the sense in which the sons of God are gods without breaking scripture, right? It's not against the Bible. It's not polytheism in a sense that threatens the one God, the Father's godship. They just lie because they believe in Trinity. All right, so we see right here very clearly that an angel is capable of blessing people. An angel is viewed as the one that God uses to do the things that are attributed to him. And then I put down here, I wanted to say, so I get questions sometimes about text. Like, for example, let me bring it up right here. Look at this. The Biggest Jesus brought this up to me recently. And it's a good question. He was very good about it. I appreciate it. But when I was answering him, I realized something. Let me see. Which one was it? I'll find it real quick. But I want to show you, this is very important. Right here. So 48, 14 through 16, right? Look at this. So sometimes Trinitarians will bring this up. Let me make it a little bigger. This ties in with the whole angel and, of course, how God and angels shepherd us. So this is related, but this is very important. So, and ties in with the account we just read from Genesis. Verse 14, come together, all of you, and listen. Which of the idols has foretold these things? The Lord's chosen ally will carry out his purpose against Babylon. His arm will be against the Babylonians. Now, often the Messiah is seen as God's arm, presented in this way, in this position. And I believe that is the case here. And of course it is, but either way, it's not like so clear. That's just how I see it and interpret it. But either way, it's not what I was getting at here. So it says, even I have spoken. Yes, I have called him. I will bring him, and he will succeed in his mission. Okay, so he will carry his purpose. His arm will be against. I will bring him. He will succeed. Come near and listen. From the first announcement, I have not spoken in secret. At the time it happens, I am there. And now the sovereign Lord has sent me, endowed with his spirit. Okay, so again, look at it again. It says, Yahweh's chosen ally will carry out his purpose against Babylon. I believe that's the angel of the Lord. That's the Messiah. In his pre-messianic role as the angel of Yahweh, as Michael, right? The one leading these people, their prince. Either way, doesn't say that explicitly, so let's just go with it. The Trinitarians say that this is Yahweh, right? It's the Father with his ally, that they see the Trinity in this, right? It doesn't, of course, say anything like that. But look, so you have Yahweh, and then you have his chosen ally who's going to carry out his purpose, who is called by Yahweh, who's brought in by Yahweh, and then that one starts talking. His ally, who I believe is Michael, the angel of the Lord, pre-human Jesus. So then he starts talking. Come near and listen to this. From the first announcement, I have not spoken in secret. At the time it happens, I am there. And now the sovereign Lord, sovereign Yahweh, has sent me, endowed with his spirit. So, now, as I said, Trinitarians see the Trinity in this. They see, they interpret Yahweh, right, as the Father, because even though there's nothing, right, they just need the three, right? So even though this is the one God right there. So unless you're an angel who's speaking for him, that's the one God. There's no Trinity. So there's the one God right here. And then this is the ally who he sent, who I believe is Michael, the angel of the Lord, angel of Yahweh. And he has his spirit. So the Trinitarians say, see, one person, the Father, second person, the Son, third person, the Spirit, right? Doesn't say any of those things. But it is, in my opinion, Michael, Jesus, the angel of the Lord. And this is, of course, God the Father, the one God. But that's not persons of a Trinity, right? They're reading all that in there. Either way, and it's not the Spirit as a person. It's his spirit, which in the Bible, Old New Testament, is contrasted with our spirit. It's not the same as his son and our son. Only a retard would be confused by those two expressions, okay? They're not the same thing. Unbelievable. Either way, that's not really why I wanted to bring this up, even though that's obvious, right? This, right there. Now, what I told Biggest Jesus was, well, it's clearly, like I just said, it's Yahweh sending his angel with his spirit. Just like it talked about the Messiah having his spirit in Isaiah 11, right? Talked about the Messiah in Isaiah 9, Isaiah 7. I mean, we get a lot of messianic stuff and stuff about the angel of Yahweh and Michael, I believe, right here, right? Because this is the angel, this is who is with these people. So this right here, though, that right there, should tell any person, okay, when you see this, the Lord Yahweh has sent me. There's only one conclusion you can draw from that. He's talking about a created angel. He makes his angels spirits, his servants flames of fire. Hebrews 1:11 says all angels are ministering spirits. All of them. So, when God wants to send somebody as a messenger, as an angel, he sends one of his created spirits. He makes his angels spirits. His ministers, he makes flames of fire. The implied verb repeated. From the first instance. Hebrews 1:11. All spirits all angels are ministering spirits. Okay, so when I see this, unless I know it's talking about like a human, right? Obviously, if it's contextually talking about Yahweh sending a human, then I know it's talking about a human messenger, a human angel, right? That's not who Trinitarians, or really the context here, is talking about, right? Okay, well, so we know from Psalm 104, and we know from Hebrews 1:7 and 11, or 14, I'm sorry, I keep saying it, might have meant 14, when it says all angels are ministering spirits. We'll go to it. Just me. But right here, right, if you ever see this, the only conclusion you can reach from the Bible is that it's talking about God Yahweh and one of his created angels, or a human, if that's what it's talking about, right? There's never any other possibility it could be. There's no such thing as any uncreated messenger or spirit, right? Or human. So it's a non-existent category. It's just an invention, like flat earth, right? So only the dumbest people fail to understand this over time. Now, because of the Trinitarians and their line, it can be a little confusing, right? That's why I'm saying it this way. It's shortcut. You don't need to play their games. The Bible already says when Yahweh wants to send someone to do some messenger, a servant, he makes a spirit. He makes a flame of fire, like this angel right here. And he gives that angel his spirit, his character or being, power to use as he goes forth on his mission. These are all really clear in the Bible. They get a little confusing at times, of course, again, because of the pagans. But this should never confuse you once you understand what I just said. There's only one thing this could be. Because when Yahweh wants to send someone, he makes a spirit, a flame of fire. The Bible tells us that. No, he never sends himself or can be sent. The Bible never says anything like that. That's the whole point of being an angel, and why angels are not God. Only liars and angel worshipers believe otherwise. So just ignore them, right? They're pagan. Now, real quickly, since I brought it up, before we go back to the shepherd text, and we got a very important part coming up with NWT, because I said Hebrews 1, 11, but it's actually 14 that says all his angels, all spirits are angels. Let's just read it. Confused myself now. I apologize. Are they not all ministering spirits? Talking about the angels here, right? Preceding verse, the whole context. Are they not all ministering spirits? All of them. Okay? There's no way out, everybody. This game is fini. It's finished. Right? I mean, there's just so much destruction to this paganism It should never bother you again. All his angels are ministering spirits. The word angel means a messenger, being sent, ministering spirits. Verse 7. And as indeed the angels, he says, the one making the angels of him spirits, and making them the ministers of him flames of fire. Just like in Exodus, just like in Judges, just like in all these accounts, and like in Deuteronomy and elsewhere, where God comes down as fire. It couldn't be any clearer, but once you listen to pagans and you get thrown off what you know the Bible teaches, all of a sudden it's harder to, that's why we have to be careful. We just don't have the strength yet. We don't have it yet. We've got some good people. We've got some good people out there who are trying hard, and I think some who have been through the fire, right? But if you don't go through the fire and you don't stand your ground, you're not going to be useful. You're just going to keep going back and forth to things that are already established, laying the foundation all over again, right? On the same stuff over. I'm telling you, you could take 10 years off. You could shut down all Trinitarian discussion for 10 years. Come back. Probably the exact same text will be actively being talked about. You won't miss anything, right? Because they never learn. But as long as you learn, that's the only thing that matters, right? Okay, let's go back to these texts. So the angel representing God, shepherding Jacob, blessing the boys on God's behalf, ministering spirits, flames of fire, all of them, right? So I made this note here. When you see the word angel in the Bible, and it applies to a spirit, flame of fire, according to Psalm 104:4, excuse me, in Hebrews 1:7-14, that is one of God's made spirits. Since in these texts, God makes his angels spirits and his servants flames of fire. And according to Hebrews 1:14, these angels are all spirits for service. None, including the angel of Yahweh, are persons of God. They are all spirits just like God. Really simple stuff, right? What's born from flesh is flesh. What's born from the spirit is spirit. It's so simple, everybody. Okay. Genesis 49:22. Let me check the perv out real quick, though, because of the pagans and demonized pastors, right? Let's see. So Derek Jones, okay, you have a question that doesn't relate to our topic at all. But I'm going to do you a favor, Derek, okay? Since you're making such a big deal about all this. It looks like your question is, you're interrupting our live show for this question. Is it proper for a one God the Father Christian to seek marriage amongst nominal Trinitarian Christians? That's a question only you can answer because you're the one who's going to have to deal with it. I don't know how you could expect me or anybody to answer that for you. It seems like you're asking for some trouble, but if you talk to the person and you make it clear that, hey, I'm okay if you believe that way, as long as you're okay that I believe this way, and we're not going to make life hard for each other, that's easier said than done. But probably something like that would have to be established first before I would even think about it. Don't you think? So why don't you start there, see how many Trinitarians are willing to do that with you, and we'll go from there. Appreciate you interrupting our live for that. Not really. Good luck to you, though. I don't understand what's Lania saying. Well, Lania, we'll leave you be for now. I don't understand what you're saying, though. Okay, so I think we've talked about that. Let's go back to the shepherd text. Just want to check you guys. We handled Derek's question. Hopefully, Derek, try to Okay, maybe you need, I get it. I answered right. I stopped. I don't like being interrupted on totally unrelated subjects, though. Right? That's not an effective means of teaching. But it sounds like you need a little help. So there you go. Genesis 49:22, offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree. Joseph is the offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by the fountain that propels its branches up over a wall. But the archers kept harassing him and shot at him and kept harboring animosity against him. And yet his bow was dwelling in a permanent place, and the strength of his hands was supple. From the hands of the powerful one of Jacob. This is where we're going to get into the NWT. It's going to be very important, Watchtower people, if you care about NWT at all. From the hands of the powerful one of Jacob, from theirs the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Let me highlight that real quick. Okay, and I have the Greek below. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay. First, I'm going to show you the issue. And then we'll solve the problem. So this, well, also verse 25 in the NWT, but we'll get to that in a moment. This is really the key verse that could be that needs to be explained. Okay, we need to explain this so that people aren't confused. And that's what we're going to do right now. So let's go ahead and go to Genesis 49:24. Let me show you how other texts translate this so you understand the problem. Genesis 49:24. Okay, so look at the NIV. The NIV, excuse me. But his bow remained steady. His strong arms stayed limber because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob. Because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. I believe that, I guess there's a small chance. This is not a good translation. I would consider it actually a mistranslation based on information I'm going to show you in a moment. But with Hebrew, sometimes, there's some flexibility to where making that kind of blanket statement can be problematic, right? No need to do that, though, because this seems to be, as you're going to see, the most unlikely meaning of this verse. And what it does is it identifies the mighty one of Jacob. You see how it uses because here? And because here? And if we go to 25, because here? And because here? You see that? The NIV and a couple others identify all of these descriptions as the same. But they're not. And you can almost prove that. But look at it again. Because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, right? There's one description. Because of the shepherd, there's two. The rock of Israel. Now, you could, I guess, technically you could say there's more than one subject here. Like we saw, this parallels kind of what we saw in Genesis 48. Remember when it said God, and then it said the angel? because it's referring to God first as the source of the blessing for the boys, followed by the fact that the angel's also involved and has been with Jacob, and therefore would also bless the boys for God. So you could have something like that here with two separate subjects closely just referenced because of their involvement with what's being discussed. I don't think so, though. Well, that is what's that's not what's happening in this means of expression, though. I don't think this is not correct right here is what I'm getting at. This because of right here is incorrect. This is okay. And these ones that follow in the next verse are okay. But not the one about the shepherd. But in the NIV, they're all the same, right? Look at that. Because of the hand of the mighty one, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, right? Identifies the shepherd as the rock of Israel, which in one sense, right, he's the rock who followed them. But rock doesn't always mean the same rock. And of course, God's a rock too. He's the stone that the builders rejected, right? So he's a rock too. It's just different. God the Father's not the stone the builders rejected. Sorry, it's a different rock. You guys are pagans. Right, and then it just goes right on. That because, that use of because and of, I would argue here, what we would translate from what in Hebrew is called a construct state, a way of showing possession in Hebrew is in what we call a construct state, where you have two nouns right next to each other. And the first one is said to be in a construct state with the second. You basically create a compound expression like this. But you don't have a construct state, which I'll explain more in a moment if you're not familiar with that, right here. You have something totally different right here in Hebrew, okay? So, what do I have on my thing there? Yeah. Okay, well, let's look at the other translations, though. Yeah. So, the New Living Translation, Sam's favorite Bible, basically the same. Instead of because of the hand, it says, by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the shepherd, the rock of Israel. And then it also uses by, I believe, in the next verse. Oh, it actually just paraphrases it totally differently because it's Living Bible, right? Now, the English Standard, I believe, is correct. Look at the difference. And we'll get into the Hebrew in a moment. NWT is like really kind of wild on this one, right? We'll get to it. Actually, NWT is correct on this part. This is what NWT says. From the hands of the powerful one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd. See, NIV and New Living say because of the shepherd. NWT says from there is the shepherd. From where? From the powerful one of Jacob. Oh, and wait until you see the Greek, right? Now, and you can see it right there, actually. Either way, NWT is correct here. That is correct. It's even in the Greek right here. That's an adverb. Ekathen. From that place. From there. From there. The one strengthening Israel with God your Father. That's what the Greek says. In the Hebrew right here from NWT, from there's the shepherd, the stone of Israel. The Greek says, from there's the one strengthening Israel with God your Father. Making a clear separation between God and this one, the shepherd. In the Greek, it's like obvious because of that addition at the end right there. But It kind of connects with the next verse too, so we'll get to it. Either way, this is correct. Not this. This is incorrect. And probably, I consider it a mistranslation, as I said. I'm going to explain more. English Standard is correct. By the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd. What does that sound like? Exactly. NWT. From there is the shepherd. So, why do we have such a difference here? Why do we have from there is the shepherd in parentheses, right? Like a total separate thought, but related. And here it's just added as a further description of the reason why these things are happening. Description of the one is the reason for why these things are happening. Potentially, though, like I said, with more than one subject, even if you look at shepherd as like a proper name, like a specific reference to the Messiah here, which it is, and the mighty one. Some say mighty God here. It doesn't say God in the Hebrew, though. We'll get to it. Berean study. Now, this is another variant you might come across, which is very interesting. When I first saw this, I thought, what is going on here? And then I looked at the Hebrew and I realized, okay, I see why they did that. Berean study says, by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, in the name of the shepherd. Right? So look at that. Look at the differences we got here. If we take NWT, that's, we'll go back to it. All right, that's the Berean Standard. Just to keep them clear. Right, so, and then one more. Just to get all three of them in there. These are the three you're going to see most often. So look at that. I'll line them all up. See that? See the yellow? These three right here are the key differences in Genesis 49:24. Now, the NWT is the correct one. I'm going to show you that. But this is very important because, well, not many people are going to be able to explain the differences. So this is information you're going to need to know about this shepherd. This is very important because it's either potentially identifying the shepherd as God, which I don't think, or as another one alongside God, like the angel we talked about in Genesis 48, or it's actually saying that the shepherd comes from the mighty one of Jacob. And in the Greek, it says he's with him, right? So this is the correct one, I believe. From there, of Genesis 49:24. This is what we're talking about, okay? Now, why do I say that? Just to keep this kind of clear. That's the Greek. Again, you can see that in the Greek, it is consistent with the NWT's translation of the Hebrew. That's an adverb meaning from there. So, But what is the Hebrew? Why does the Hebrew have this variance? Right? That's pretty different when you say from there is the shepherd, in the name of the shepherd, because of the shepherd. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the Hebrew. Or I have actually, I copied. Okay, so we have here two terms. And this is fundamentally why we have this variance. The term on the right, in like the middle, is what's actually used in the text of Genesis 49:24. Sham. The term on the left, well, okay. As you can see, the two terms, right? I put V. I'll put just a line there. You can see that the only difference between those two terms is the symbol beneath one letter, right? So Hebrew, we read Hebrew from right to left, and these two letters that form these two words are the Hebrew letters Shin and Mem. So Shin is the first letter on the right. Kind of looks like a harp. Yeah. So below that first letter, that Shin, the harp looking letter, that little vowel point, that's a vowel point. You often hear about vowel points in the Masoretic text. So, which weren't in earlier Hebrew texts, but became used as a means of pronunciation, vocalization of the Hebrew text. So you have a difference there. On the right, the term that's in the actual text we're going to go to in a moment, the Shin, the harp-looking letter, has the vowel points that we call a tsire. It's spelled in English T-S-E-R-E. Tsire. And then on the left, the Shin here has what we call a kamatz. Okay? That's just the names of those vowel points in these uses. So as you can see, it's the exact same letters, just vowel pointed differently. Now, why do I say, it's likely a mistranslation not to say from there and to use like NIV because of? If we have such a minor difference, right? It seems like, well, it could be either one, right? Well, okay. So first let's go. Do I have that text here? Yeah, I do. So in this case, I copied from the Bible Hub, so we didn't have to keep just jumping around. Let me make this a little bigger, actually. See if I can make this a little bigger. So this is the text we're talking about, right? Look, see, here's the New American Standard. We didn't get to that, but as you can see, also consistent with the English Standard, from there, like NWT, also in parentheses. So clearly not in any way creating a potential further description of the mighty one of Jacob as the shepherd. Now, in the text, it says, Misham. This letter here is a Hebrew preposition that's prefixed to the word that is vowel pointed as sham. Okay, remember this right here. This kamatz, this little T vowel point down there. So that has like an ah sound, sham. This tsire, the two little dots down there below that harp letter, shin, has like an A sound. Shame. So that's the word for name. That's why some of the translations say in the name of the shepherd. Because they're translating it as if it says shame. but it doesn't. It's vowel pointed as sham, as it's shown also right here. So, where was that one? It was the Bibles like Berean Standard. Now, if we go back, there are others. Berean Standard in the name of, right? King James, the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, the mighty God of Jacob, right? King James adds the word God. It's in italics. I don't know if you can see that. It's in italics. That's not in the Hebrew text. It's just the word abir. The mighty, it says mighty God, so it just says the mighty of Jacob, mighty one of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, right? Just like NWT, not like NIV or Berean Standard. New King James, same thing. God uses God, and from there, a little different placement and capitalization, though, from Old King James. New American Standard, we saw that. It's like NWT, kind of. Legacy, mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd. So, same, and NWT, same thing. Amplified, by the name of the shepherd, by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd. It kind of separates it with parentheses, though, even though it keeps the same preposition, which I don't think is correct, as you'll see. Use that there. Either way, American Standard, from thence is the shepherd. Where's the Net Bible? Net Bible also kind of blew it. Well, it did. It's just like NIV, because of the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. And then a colon going right on to the next verse, seemingly identifying this same one, unless there's more than one being spoken of here, like with Genesis 48, as the Almighty, right? So it creates a lot of confusion for Trinitarians. They try to use this, but they don't understand what's going on, like I just explained. Okay, so let's go to the Hebrew, and just real quickly here. It's very important, though. So far, NWT is correct in verse 24. And again, the Hebrew, as I'm showing you, is consistent with the Greek translation. Now, in the parallel Hebrew, but remain strength his bow, were tempered the arms, his hand, by the hands of the mighty. Okay. So look, this is where it's very important to focus here. By the hands of the mighty. It doesn't say God here. It just says like a avir. Hands of the mighty of Jacob. So you see right there, by, see that preposition? And there it is right there, mean, abbreviated form of mean. And here you get it again. Misham. Notice here in the parallel interlinear, it says from there is. Is understood as is often true, but not always. From there. So they're also taking it here as an adverb. They're not taking this as a noun in the name, right? So you can see right here, that is not the word for name. It is the word for from there. It's an adverb. As I said earlier, sham with the preposition abbreviated mean, misham. There, thither, there, then. So other than, and numerous examples, of course, over here. I also copied a few on my sheet. Other than the similarity of the letters, well, they're the same letters, but the vowel pointing is clearly not name. So unless translations like the Berean Study and others that use name are just going to say, well, the original text wasn't pointed and we believe it said name, You can do that, right? As a translator, you still need to make a case for it, though, right? I guess you can do what you want, but I mean, you should have a good reason for it. So you should be able to argue that if you don't think the Masoretic text is vowel pointed correctly as sham, and it should be shame, then you need to explain why you think that before you just change it, because the Septuagint Greek translation doesn't agree with that. And I'm not even sure it really makes sense when you look at the parallel examples, right? So if you look here, Genesis 42:26, it uses the exact same expression, misham. And it can only mean from there. Right? Since its functions used here, it's very clear. I think also in this verse, our subject text, Genesis 26:25. Now, I looked in the Hebrew text to see, okay, because when they say in the name of, right, mean isn't really the way I would say that, right? It would be ba. Ba is the right preposition, or the more common preposition, meaning in. So when I looked in Genesis to see where it was used with shame, name, if that's the meaning we want to give it, in the name of the shepherd, I didn't see any uses of mean with shame. I saw shame. I saw it there in Genesis 26:25 and Deuteronomy 18:5. So, and there's a link I want to go to just to show you more on this real quickly. Right here. So, if you pull up one of the instances in the Bible Hub, it'll give you like a listing over on the right there of other occurrences. Look at that. So, Beshem, in or on the name of. 58 times we see Beshem. Another 8 times Beshemot. Another 8 times Beshimka. Then, if we go down to Shem prefixed with mean, we get one instance of Mishemeka, one instance of Mishemotam, and one instance of Mishimka. Right? And they don't mean, right? They don't mean in the name of, right? That's not what it means in the instances where it's used. So if we go back, my point is, if we go back, saying that in Genesis 49:24, we do have mean with shame seems really odd to me. And it would not be the preferred understanding in the name of at all. I can tell you that. So, and it's not pointed that way. It's Misham, from there. So, from there is the shepherd, from the mighty one. It's basically saying he's from God. The shepherd is from the mighty one of Jacob. That's what the Hebrew and the Greek actually say. That's what the actual vowel point says on this term sham, not shame. But some translations are making it seem like it says shame, not sham. Now, so what about because of, right? Remember the translations? So that we had the one said in the name of, which we've kind of basically just annihilated. really no reason for that. What about because of? Right? Net Bible had that too. Well, again, that's not what the Greek sees in it, but still, we have to look at the Hebrew. The reason that isn't going to work is because look at how it is. Because of the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the stone of Israel, if we use that, because the God of your father, and who will help you, and by the Almighty, who will bless you. This will get us into where it's kind of a problem for NWT. The verse 25, NWT kind of goes a little too far. Well, I'll just show you. So NWT, that's what NWT does. NWT says, he is from the God of your father, and he will help you. And the Almighty, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. NWT says he's from God, the God of your father, and he will help you, and he is with the Almighty, and he will bless you. Right? It's clearly like creating a separation between this one, the shepherd, and the God Almighty. Now, there's reason for this, and sometimes NWT's translation doesn't line up with the other translations in terms of the Hebrew. So we got to go a little further than verse 24. Like, this is why we're in 25 here. See how verse 25 starts out, by the God of your father? And then it says, and who will help you. It's kind of an interesting expression here. And this is where you get a little latitude in Hebrew, if it's not clear, to try to make sense of it in its context, which in NWT's case, remember, NWT got verse 24 correct. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. So what NWT's translation is doing in verse 25 is it's taking that translation of verse 24 and bringing this subject of the shepherd, who's now been brought up as from the God, the mighty one of Jacob. They're taking the shepherd from that right here, from there is the shepherd, and they're saying, and they're adding this, he is, to make sense of what's actually in the Hebrew, which is from or by God, the God of your father, right? Right here. By the God of your father. So NWT is just, they're saying that's implied from what verse 24 says about the shepherd being from the mighty one of Jacob, that he is from God your father, because that's exactly what it says in verse 24. So NWT is just seeing that as a repetition of the same thing in relation to God as their father who helps them, right? So if you go back, 24, from there is the shepherd. So right there it says, the shepherd is from the mighty one of Jacob. From there is I'm going to show that's also more on the Hebrew and why that has to mean from there. It's clear what the Greek says. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. So they're saying he, that shepherd, he is from, right, they're translating mean here as from, which it can mean. He is from the God of your father. So that is possible. You are allowed there. That is within the linguistic parameters of the language to see the subject of the next verse as implied from the preceding ending of the preceding verse, the ending of the preceding verse, and to carry it forward to make sense of the continuation of what's being discussed. That doesn't mean that's what's happening, though. So it's just NWT's way of saying, this is how we understand from the God of your father, and who will help you. They're carrying that shepherd subject forward and saying, it just said he's from the mighty one of Jacob. He is from God your father, and he will help you. So I think NWT is defensible. It just adds words based on an implied subject from the preceding ending of the preceding verse to make sense of the first part of this verse and the next part, and he will help you. So now other translations take this as applying to by the God of your father who will help you. And then they just don't really translate this use of and, right? So it's kind of like you're looking at this as a translator and you're seeing this here, word for and. And that right there is probably the best way to connect the subject from the ending of the preceding verse to the first part of this verse, because I think it does make more sense. Now look though, if we look at parallel translations, look at how this doesn't get translated. In NWT, right, it is translated, and he will help you. But look at these other translations. They don't translate the wa. Because of your father's God who helps you. See, there's no and there. May the God of your father help you. May the Almighty bless you. No and. By the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you. No and. But these translations aren't using he is. Right? He is by the God of your father who will help you. NWT says from instead of by, but that's not really the issue. My point is that the he is of verse 25 in NWT is done to bring the subject of the at the end of the preceding verse into the next verse and to make sense of that wa, that and, which these other translations just ignore. Oh, Berean study does, by the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you. Now, what did it actually say, though? See, it's there twice. It actually, they either don't translate it twice, or Berean only did it once. Look, I'm telling you, this is important. You need to understand this. Look, right? So there's no and here at all. No and. You get to Berean and look, you get one and. By the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of heaven. But look, by the God of your father, and he will help you. And you see, you got wa used here with 8, direct object marker. What 8? So there's something a little different here that allows for more than one option in translation. Does provide a basis for NWT's use of he is at the start of verse 25. Now, I think NWT does the best with this. I'm not crazy about the he is part. I don't think it's just not easy, right? Either NWT or Berean study with the one and, not two. do the best with verse 25 because it's just a little tricky. And verse 24 is really what I think is influencing most translators when they get to verse 25. So those that don't follow NWT like this, I think, are more likely not to use and once or twice in verse 25. Although Berean did use it once, but it's not like a critical thing. It's just, you saw the other translations, they didn't use it at all. They didn't need to, they felt, because of what they were doing. What were they doing? They were applying all the descriptions to one individual, basically identifying the shepherd as the God of Israel, which isn't what it does. It identifies the shepherd as coming from the God of Israel, right? So it's a big deal, and the Greek is consistent with NWT and what we're saying here. So that's very important. And in the Greek, it even says, as I said, he's with the God of your father. Okay? So, in verse 25, did verse 25, and it does say that in the start of verse 25, but it's different. The Greek of the Septuagint, because it uses the adverb ekathen, therefore, when it says he's with God your Father, that's what it's saying. It's making it very clear that he's with that God. It's not by that God that all this is happening. It's saying that the shepherd is from the mighty one of Israel, and he's with God your Father. There's no other way to understand that. The Hebrew is a little more ambiguous, as I just said, because sham and shame. But, the Greek gives us some direction, and we can make sense of it as we just did. And it shows more than likely, based on the prepositions and their uses, to mean in the name of versus something else when in the name of is used. Be versus mean. Does not favor the translations that try to make that expression or that connection. All right, so some information there for you on Genesis 49, 24, and 25 that hopefully will help you better understand the different readings and how the text does not identify the shepherd as the God of Israel, but the shepherd as from that God. Okay, so back to our remain shepherd text. Blessings as your father will be superior. And also, let's just go back real quickly. The other day I mentioned, bless you with the blessings of heaven, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and the womb. 26, I mentioned the other day, I think in our Extreme Apologetics show, how the word olam, we're talking about how there's no arguments for eternal generation at all in the Bible. It's just retarded. But we actually had someone try, barely. And they threw out olam, got hammered with Micah 7:14. But I mentioned also there were other texts that used olam, of course. We wanted the one in the context of Micah 5 that they brought up. And I also mentioned how the mountains are described as being from olam, right? Or the hills. And that's in here in Genesis 49:26. Since it's in our reading, I want to point that out right here. Olam. Or the hills, right? It's all over the place, but Trinitarians are bankrupt morally and spiritually and mentally, so they can't figure it out. All right, back to these. So we can see here, right? He will help you. He's the Almighty. He will bless you. We saw that in Genesis 48. Angel and God as shepherds bless us. Uh, 2 Samuel 5:1. In time, all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron, saying, "Look, we ourselves are your bone and flesh, your flesh. Both yesterday and previously, while Saul happened to be king over us, you yourself became the one leading Israel out and bringing it in. And Jehovah proceeded to say to you, you yourself will shepherd my people Israel." So we can see that the idea of shepherding, once again, has to do with leading, bringing them in, right? There's a specific quality that is a part of being a shepherd that has to do with capable leadership. And you can see here, God raises up people to shepherd his people. This is not a foreign concept. It's like all over the place, actually, right? From the angel like we saw in Genesis 48, 49, to David. Of course, Jehovah Jireh, right? This is the kind of qualities, right? Remember what we talked about? Remember we talked about the illustration about a shepherd? And we had the kind of the visual. We said, okay, think of the field. Think of the sheep and the wolf and all the things that would put you in the place of a shepherd with his sheep, protecting them from the wolf. That's what you have right here. Jehovah was that shepherd. Jesus is that shepherd. We're also that shepherd when we have to be. And when we are, we take care of the sheep, right? The sheep do this. They lie down in a well-watered resting place, refreshed in tracts of righteousness for his name's sake. But when the wolf comes, right, then these things have to pause, or one of us could die or get hurt. This is the goal, right? This is where we want to be, right there. Jehovah is a strength to his people, a stronghold of the grand salvation. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. Another reason why this can't be, I wanted to explain why this really can't be because of, right? I talked about in the name of. But you see, I talked about a construct state earlier, which anyone who studied Hebrew, I've studied Hebrew for over 30 years, taken formal courses in Hebrew. I've tutored under people who know Hebrew fluently. I'm very familiar with it. It's just the Greek gets more attention. Either way, my point is, construct state in Hebrew just means that when there are two nouns together with each other, that the first noun is in a construct state relation with the second noun, creating a compound expression. So here, though, with Misham, you don't have that. Right? Even here, let me see. Yeah, right here. Even in the Bible Hub's little markings, like over here on the right, you see where it gives like markings? Like it says N right here, FC. That last C means construct. It's in a construct state with Israel, thus word for stone, because you have two nouns here. Okay, you have the noun for stone, and you have the noun for Israel. And they're in a construct state, meaning there's a relationship here that results in a compound expression. The stone of Israel. That's not the relationship you have, right, with Misham and the shepherd. Now, if you take this as shame, well, of course, then you can see it as a construct state, which is exactly what I think it was Berean, whoever did, in the name of. That's taking it in a construct state relationship with shepherd and seeing it as shame instead of sham. So, but that's not what you have here. Again, it's vowel pointed as sham, not shame. There's no reason to take this as shame, unless you're just going to override the vowel pointing of the Masoretic text without any help from the Greek. And there's no reason to see sham in a construct state with shepherd, because sham is an adverb. So it can't be in a construct state, right? It's not possible. Therefore, because of the shepherd is also not possible. Just don't ask a fat masturbating pervert or a demonized pastor that. They won't be able to help you. Right? It's what the shepherd does, right? He's a strength, stronghold. shepherds them, carries them to time indefinite. He chose David. He brought him to be a shepherd over Jacob, his people, and over Israel, his inheritance. So all those times when God refers to himself as shepherding the people, it's not always him directly, right? We all know this, but because of the insanity, right? We have to break down what's so obvious, because these pagans, God brings up shepherds to do what he wants to do as the great shepherd. And he began to shepherd them according to the integrity of his heart, and with the skillfulness of his hands, he began leading them, right? Look at the parallel there. Shepherding, leading. Psalm 80, verse 1. O shepherd of Israel, do give ear. Do rouse up your mightiness to come to our salvation. Just once again showing how the shepherd aspect and idea is presented throughout the Bible for Yahweh and for all those he brings up and raises up as shepherds for him. Isaiah 40:10, look, the sovereign Lord Jehovah himself will come, even as a strong one, and his arm will be ruling for him. Once again, we get the use of the word arm here, I believe in a messianic sense. Obviously, we know Jehovah doesn't show up directly, visibly. Can't be done unless special protection or you die. His reward is with him like a shepherd. He will shepherd his own drove. And yet, once again, right after that, we get the messianic reference to his arm collecting them. Isaiah 44:27, the one saying to the watery deep, be evaporated, and all you rivers I shall dry up. The one saying of Cyrus, he is my shepherd. And all that I delight in, he will completely carry out. Even in my saying of Jerusalem, she will be rebuilt, and of the temple, you will have your foundation laid. So, very significant work here. God is appointing a non-Hebrew, non-son of Israel as a shepherd for purposes related to his people. So he can and does raise up shepherds from all kinds of people. Jeremiah 3:14, return, O you renegade sons, for I myself have become the husbandly owner of you people. And I will take you, one out of a city and two out of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. And I will give you shepherds, not one, multiple shepherds in agreement with my heart, and they will certainly feed you with knowledge and insight. Not ask for your money or to really do anything, right? But benefit from the knowledge and insight. Jeremiah 23:3, I myself shall collect together the remnant of my sheep out of all the lands to which I have dispersed them. Verse 4, and I will raise up over them shepherds who actually shepherd them. I thought he said he's going to shepherd them. Well, of course he is. Through the shepherds that he raises up, just like with the angel in Genesis 48. Just like with David. Look, there are days coming, Jeremiah 23:5, and I will raise up to David a righteous sprout. It's a messianic reference, I believe. And a king will certainly reign and act with discretion and execute justice and righteousness. In his days, Judah will be saved and Israel itself will reside in security. So you can see right here in a messianic reference to David's righteous sprout. It's about raising up shepherds who actually shepherd them so they're not afraid or struck with terror, and none are missing. You see this right here? None are missing. So what Sam doesn't understand in his retarded attempt to try to get around the meaning of John 10 by going elsewhere in the context to try to explain the quotation of Psalm 82 when it has nothing to do with it, namely, you're not going to snatch them out of my hand. Why? Father gave them to me. No one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand or the Son's hand once he's been given them. And it says right here, he raises up shepherds who shepherd them so that none are missing. What pagan Sam doesn't understand when he misinterprets the Bible, doesn't want to deal with the context related to Psalm 82, which doesn't change anything. That's still the gods of Psalm 82 he's comparing himself with and showing that's not blasphemy, calling them gods. So why are you saying I'm calling myself, or blasphemy by calling myself God's son? That has nothing to do with any of this snatching out of the hand stuff, right? That shows Dr. White wasn't prepared for it either. Because he actually listened to Sam on that point during our debate and went out of he wouldn't answer my question. Why is he quoting Psalm 82? Well, Dr. White, per dumb Sam, says, well, do you think it might have anything to do with what he says earlier? That none will snatch them out of my hand? No. How does that have anything to do with sons of God being called gods and not breaking scripture? You see, Dr. White was caught, and Sam is stupid. We'll do part 3 and expose that little pervert more sometime this week. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Look, there are days coming, as the utterance of Joel, I'll raise up David. We talked about, okay. Ezekiel 34:22, I will save my sheep. I will judge between a sheep and a sheep. You know what's interesting about that right there? You know how when Jesus says he comes back and 2 will be doing this, 1 will be taken and the other one left behind. 2 will be doing this, 1 will be taken, the other one left behind. Isn't that interesting? Especially when he says, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am, right? It's almost like it's going to get so bad, everybody. We already know we can't trust anybody. Like even the one other person we have with us, who we think is with us so we can have the master with us, may not be with us. But why would he say 2 are there? Why not say, well, a big crowd will be there, a few will be taken, the rest left? No, he says 2 are there. 1 taken. You better be very, very careful, everybody. Look, right here. Judge between a sheep and a sheep. Not everyone's a sheep. You think's a sheep. That could be a wolf acting like a sheep. I'll raise up over them 1 shepherd. We already know he had shepherds multiple times. And he even says right here, even my servant David, he will feed them. He himself will become their shepherd. And I myself will become their God, right? So we see here the fulfillment of what we see in the New Testament with Jesus, in Revelation, where Jesus becomes the king just like David, and Yahweh becomes our God. They'll no longer defile themselves with their dungy idols, right? All the anal abuse with the pagan idols right there. It says right there, defiling with dungy idols. I don't know. Verse 24, my servant David will be king over them, and 1 shepherd is what they will come to have. So again, you can see this constant reference to others as shepherds standing for Jah, doing the shepherding. Micah 5:4, talking about the Messiah. We've talked about it before. He will stand and do shepherding in the strength of Yahweh. In the superiority of the name of Yahweh, his God. It's over, right? We already know it. They don't know it. We have to keep saying it. It's game over. He's shepherding. He's standing. He's strong. He's in God's name. That's what we do, everybody. Stand and shepherd in the name of Yahweh. We don't let these pagan pervert wolves in. We smash them if they even try to get close. Zechariah 11:16, for here I am letting a shepherd rise up in the land. To the sheep effaced he will give no attention. To the one stationed herself he will not supply with food. And the flesh of the fat one he will eat. And the hoofs of the sheep he will tear off. This is the shepherd, you understand? In other words, you don't play games with Jah's shepherds. You get your ass off. I'm letting a shepherd rise up. To the sheep being effaced, he will give no attention. The young one he will not seek. The broken sheep he will not heal. The one stationed herself he will not supply with food. The flesh of the fat one he will not eat. And the hooves of the sheep he will tear off. And he will certainly say, I am no prophet. I'm a man cultivating the soil. This is a different account, Zechariah 13:5. Because of an earthly man, those shows he will bring up shepherds of all kinds if it's necessary to deal with the problem and the people who are not what they claim to be or who need more to be what they claim to be. Verse 7, chapter 13, O sword, awake against my shepherd, even against the able-bodied man who is my associate. Strike the shepherd and let those of the flock be scattered. It's just like we see fulfilled in the New Testament, which we're going to read right now. Matthew 26:31. We're almost done, everyone. Jesus said to them, all of you will be stumbled in connection with me on this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered about. That's not a good place to be, right? It must have been terrifying for them until he came back, Holy Spirit. Now they're back. But this will happen, right? The wolves try to get in. You gotta make sure you're not making it easy for them. Mark 14:27, Jesus said to them, you will all be stumbled because it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. Okay. John 10, the thief does not come unless it is to steal and slay and destroy. That's your wolf right there. Right? That's not someone we're supposed to be gentle and nice to. Do you agree? Someone who's coming to steal, kill you, and destroy you. You should never, ever be confused about these people and the people he mentions next. I'm the fine shepherd. The fine shepherd, in a general sense, and him, surrenders his soul in behalf of the sheep. Wouldn't you say that's totally different from these perverts? You got to watch out for these people. This person you'll never have to worry about because he's not a hired man. Hired man doesn't care for the sheep. That's why they're frauds. They want your money. They don't work. They sell you shitty mobile homes, get you to leave your family because they're too stupid to give you good advice. Hired man doesn't give a shit about you. That should be obvious. Unless you're not looking at who you're talking, you don't understand what you're dealing with, you're stupid. Okay? If you're that stupid, you can't see who cares about you and who doesn't, maybe you just deserve to die, right? I don't know. Maybe there's retarded sheep out there and you can't help them. I don't know. I'm the fine shepherd. I know my sheep know me. Just the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I surrender my soul on behalf of the sheep. I know the Father. Do you? If you do, you'd be doing the same things I'm doing. I have other sheep which are not of this fold. Those also I must bring. They will listen to my voice. They'll become one flock, one shepherd. That's why the Father loves me. I surrender my soul in order that I might receive it again. Game over. No man is taken away from me. I surrender on my own. I have authority to receive it, and I have authority to surrender it, and I have authority to receive it again. Game over. The commandment on this I received from my Father. What's that about the game being over? Ephesians 4:10. Very one that descended is also one that ascended far above all the heavens, just like we're going to be. Revelation 3:21, with him on that throne, that he might give fullness to all things. Colossians 2:10. We get fullness, just like him. He gave some as apostles, some as prophets, some as evangelizers, some as shepherds, some as and teachers, with a view to the readjustment of the holy ones. For ministerial work, for the building up of the body. Okay, we have a lot of needs right now because we're just coming off of having to deal with the abuse from groups like Watchtower and others who have lied to people for so long. It's going to take some effort and time for us to get things back in order. Or we've got all these pagans and demonized pastors out here that we're just going to have to really be careful. But you have to remember, not everybody is doing the same thing. And if you are, it's probably not a good thing. Some as shepherds and even as teachers, right? What does James say? Not many of you should be. And yet everybody wants to be, right? Go figure. Why don't you help the poor and the lowly? That's where God and Jesus are. Okay. Hebrews 13:19. But I exhort you more especially to do this, that I may be restored to you sooner. May the God of peace, who brought up from the dead the great shepherd of the sheep with the blood of an everlasting covenant, our Lord Jesus, equip you with every good thing to do his will. The God of peace who brought up from the dead, as we know, Galatians 1:1, the great shepherd of the sheep. Not an eternal God, but a great shepherd of the sheep. Just like the Bible says, everyone, we don't need to change it or add to it. It's enough. God's first creation, God's firstborn son, initially and from the dead, is enough for us. Shepherd the flock of God in your care, not in compulsion, but willingly, neither for love of dishonest gain or shitty mobile homes or fat, perverted, masturbating pigs, but eagerly, not lording over those who are God's inheritance, but becoming examples to the flock by staying up to wolves and pagans and not letting them get in so close to you. They take away everything you have. They rip you open because you weren't watching what you had and who was trying to take it. And when the chief shepherd has been made manifest, you will receive the unfading crown of glory. Hold fast what you have until I come. He that conquers and observes my deeds down to the end, I will give authority over nations. To do what? To be nice to everybody? Even people who aren't listening and who are wolves and pagans and who are lying? No. He will shepherd the people with an iron rod so they will be broken to pieces like clay vessels. There's not just one form of shepherding. We have to beat the asses of the wolves and the pagans and the liars and the cowards, the same as I received from my Father. Elder talking to John, telling about those who will thirst anymore. God will spread his tent over them. The Lamb will shepherd them and guide them to fountains of waters of life. Male child's born, Revelation 12. Caught away to God into his throne to shepherd the nations with an iron rod. That's not going to be so nice. Last section of text. And I saw the heaven open, and look, a white horse, and the one seated upon it is called Faithful and True, and he judges and carries on war and righteousness. His eyes are a fiery flame, and upon his head are many diadems. He has a name written that no one knows but he himself. And he is arrayed with an outer garment sprinkled with blood, and the name he is called is the Word of God. Also the armies that were in heaven were following him on white horses, and they were clothed in white, clean, fine linen. And out of his mouth there protrudes a long, sharp sword, that he may strike the nations with it, and he will shepherd them, the ones he just hit with the sword, with an iron rod. He treads to the winepress of the anger of the wrath of God the Almighty. And upon his outer garment, even upon his thigh, he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, both temporally bestowed upon him by Yahweh, the one God whom no one makes Lord or King. So I hope that discussion, everybody, has been helpful to you. I hope the discussion of Genesis 49:24 has been enlightening and gave you information that would help you become more understanding of the different translations that you may come across with respect to those verses, Genesis 49:24 through 26. We also talked about Isaiah 48, Genesis 48, all kinds of things having to do with shepherds and wolves, sheep and shepherds, pagans, right? We're going to get back to that as well, George. Sam's not getting away. So look for my part 3, Destruction of Sam's, attempted review of my debate with Dr. White, where he admitted he told Dr. White to say something Dr. White actually said that helped him not at all, but Sam's too stupid to see it. So we'll make sure everyone sees how dumb he is again and hopefully help Sam if that's possible. Otherwise, it looks like you guys are all good. And I'm very happy to see you all. Thanks for coming, George. NWT was more accurate in verse 24. And I am not saying verse 25 is wrong. We just need to understand, right, George, why it's saying he is from it. That part right there needed a little explanation, or could be a stumbling block to others when they're confronted with translations that say in the name of the shepherd or because of the shepherd, right? And make them all look like they're the same. So I think that was important. I'll probably do a clip of that And that way it'll be a smaller version of that helpful part. Doesn't look like we have much of a perv out, so that's good. Hopefully these pagans will stay in their neighborhood and learn not to mess with us unless they just feel like they have to have an ass-off moment, right? Either way, I will be back Thursday for part 2 of our general discussion on the Trinity. I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for supporting what we're doing here, both the normal discussions and the extreme. And let's do our best to try to focus on the more normal things, even though we have some extreme elements that we have to deal with. So, till Thursday, may Jah bless you all in Jesus' name. Pretty good. I enjoyed that.